Hello, our Pilot Light Unpackians. Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm
I
Zoe
love
Coyle,
it.
and this is.
I'm an unpackian. I'm Polly McGee. I love that. Unpackians. That makes me so happy.
We are Pilot Light, and if you've watched some of our videos before or have been listening to us on a podcast, we have been rumpusing around in a myriad of themes and questions that we most often get asked in the rooms that we facilitate in. We have covered, what have we covered, Polly? We've covered
So
vulnerability,
much.
shame,
Shame, empathy,
boundaries,
so many
ego.
boundaries.
Yeah, a lot of things. Anyway, you can find us, well, however you found us today.
Yeah.
But today we are going to talk about perfectionism, which is something that that comes up a lot. We get a lot of questions about it because there are a lot of perfectionists out there, or people with perfectionist streaks. And I'm one. You one, Polly? No.
Not so much.
So we're going to talk about perfectionism. And the thing I'm going to start with before I hand across to beautiful Polly is that perfectionism is the thief of good enough. Polly, what's your thought on that?
Well, I would like to just badminton that back to you, because I'd like you to tell me what your definition of perfectionism is, because I think for me, this is, I think for a long time I thought it was something that it wasn't. So I'd like to hear what you think it is.
That is such a great question. So for me, diction.
That's not it, right?
Hey, that's not what it is. Allow me to demonstrate it.
You weren't letting that get in the way of good, though.
I was not. So perfection is something that is perfect. So it is without blemish. It is without the capacity for improvement. And I say that and I can feel my heart constricting. What is the definition for you?
Well, no, I just think it's interesting because I don't identify as being a perfectionist, but I don't think many of us get away from the grasp of what its effects are. So I thought perfectionism was very much about being orderly and neat and tidy and sort of going for a perfect surface, which clearly is not something that I subscribe to because I'm deeply slops. So I'm like, oh, look at my bedroom. You'd never say that about me.
Whereas I do have control issues. I really, really like neat.
But I also don't think it's blanket either. I think in my mind, it was like it's across everything. So I think that my understanding of it now in terms of what drives us to be, because we're not enough. So perfectionism is the symptom of not enough. And we have to do better. We're never satisfied. And I absolutely see that in areas of my life where I hadn't previously had a consciousness around that even when I've done the absolute best I can, not so much now, but certainly before I started the process of digging into my onion a bit, I would be like, oh, I thought I'd feel better about that, but I don't really feel better. I should do something else. I'll do something harder and faster and stronger and bigger, and then I'll feel satisfied. And I think that's perfectionism as well, because if all roads lead back to not being enough, we're never going to be enough. So it's the same. But I think because for so long I thought it was a really surface thing, I was like, oh, dodged a bullet with that one.
Oh, that's so interesting. So for me, it certainly goes hand in hand with my tendency to effort. So the idea is I do all the work. If I'm as good as I can possibly be, in fact, if I'm better than I can possibly be, then I'm not going to let anybody down. I'm not going to waste anybody's time, and I'm going to be safe.
Yeah.
What a nuts illusion. And then to carry on speaking personally, what happens is I lose my sense of humor. You'd be surprised to hear. I become non-porous. It's about me and not the other person. And I can't really listen. And my mind is no longer agile or creative. So it's a great big robber. I feel that very strongly.
Yeah, and because it's the symptom of not enough. It's a primal childhood wound. So those traits for us, I believe, are formed in wanting to get our parents to see us, wanting to get our parents to, as you say, make us safe, put us out of danger, that we want to be able to be in a place where we are connected in the world. And so I feel it comes so strongly from childhood, because that's where we learn the first part of not being enough. And then we start overcompensating externally to get people to see that we're enough, and that so it's good enough or thin enough or pretty enough or well-groomed enough or smart enough or sporty enough. All of the things that we believe, if we are that, we'll have the thing that we think we can make permanent, which is always simultaneously illusory and eternal, which is love. And again, we'll do another episode on unconditional love, because I think it really sits in that sort of belief that we will always be loved by our parents in a way that isn't as transactional as the real expression of that love is. And so we have to keep working for it, which is where all this efforting and striving is coming from. And we see it in, that's what I'm saying, like I laugh about my non-perfectionism, because clearly, like, I've got as many traits as the next person, and you're the next person.
Yeah, I am. I'm the next person in this list. I am. I think there's also something, what I observe in the rooms, and we get a lot of people that identify as having perfectionistic traits. Yeah. Usually over half the room put up their hands, would you say?
At least. I reckon most people see it in themselves, and some to a more pathological degree. Like, you see the people that are like, oh God, it's like, it's stopping me doing everything.
Yeah, and I wonder too if it's particularly our generation, that idea of, because we're so in comparison with other people, that's set up all the time. Look at Joe Blow doing a job, and how can I compete with that? And the only way I can do that is through efforting my ass off and achieving perfection. And then of course that idea that through social media and the insane machine that is Hollywood, we're sold that perfection, that sort of oh, that's brilliant. The word's gone from my mind. Airbrushed. I loved it that wasn't available to me. What is that? That airbrushed perception of self is actually available. And that's a complete illusion, isn't it? It's mental.
It's all an illusion, though, which is that's the great mentalness of life. But I don't even think I think our generation has got it in spades, but I tell you what, I think millennials are suffering even more, because they've grown up on a diet of screen-based, real-life people. I think for us, because we were kids when there wasn't social media, we had Hollywood and airbrushing, so we were aspiring to an unachievable celebrity. Oh, except in your case, when you became a celebrity. But the unachievable sort of Hollywood was sort of over there, so we were kind of stretching. Now we look at our phones on Instagram as millennials, or as us, and we're like, oh, that's like that woman I see all the time at daycare, and look at all the stuff she's doing, I should do that too. Why don't I look that flawless? Why don't I show up in that way? And it's almost like everyone is competing against everyone else now, where it was kind of nice to aspire to having a poster on your wall of someone, and not feeling like it was everywhere you turn you have to be your best. So you can't go down the shops now because someone might see you and you're not going to look like your Instagram photo, or you're going to be caught out for the army you've got on. So I think it's way more confusing now.
I would totally agree with that. And what do you think the solution is for people that self-identify with these traits?
Oh, solutions. I'm staying in the problem.
Because I would say awareness. I would say, yes. Thanks for asking. So let me ask you, so that you can ask me. I think awareness is the first thing. Being aware that is a neural pathway that you have burnt into your brain and into your heart and into your gut. That is what you're pursuing, and then having a really frank, confronting conversation about the fact that you've set yourself up to fail because it is not achievable, and why. Why have you done that? And where did you drink the Kool-Aid there? And what happens if you open your hands and soften and practice self-compassion and come back to, I'm going to bring my rigor and I'm going to bring my excellence and I'm going to bring my all. But it's okay for it to be whatever it is then. And I love how Eckhart Tolle talks about that too, that idea of relinquishing our obsession with the outcome so that you can be really present in the moment. And that actually, of course, what we know is that that's when we're all most powerful, most engaged, most connected, and divinity can come through.
Yeah, and I think that, so my feelings are similar in relation to, the first step is to understand how it's robbing you of joy. I think when we get that really visceral sense, and for me, this is often the point of crisis that many people get to when they've had a relatively successful life. So they've done all the things they thought they were going to have to do to be able to get where they are. They've maybe got a relationship, or they've got the job they wanted, they've got the degrees they wanted, they've got the aesthetics that they wanted, and they still feel this sense of emptiness and this sense that they're not what they meant to be. And there's got to be the point in our arcs of our lives that we kind of go, okay, and this is that sort of, there's more to life than this. I'm going to start getting curious and I'm going to investigate. And that investigation is entirely internal, because there's nothing, you can never do anything to its nth degree. There's nothing that's ever finite in the things that we do. So to imagine there is a place at which we stop and go, no, perfection, because that perfection only exists in the divine. It only exists in our essence. And so again, as Eckhart Tolle so beautifully puts it, that is always present, always perfect. Like the divine is the perfection. So what we are really doing is we are looking for our essence, and I believe we go on this, we're born with our own divinity intact. We know what it is, and we layer and layer and layer and layer all the beliefs of society on until we get so overburdened that we can't stand under the weight of all of those layers. And that's the point at which a lot of people have that crisis where they are like, now I need to find something else. I'll give you an example from my life, because I really see it as the point where I recognized what it was to be looking externally constantly for approval and for that sense of self. And I did my PhD, I'd finished my PhD, it had happened, I'd gone to my awards ceremony, and I remember sort of coming back and I was thinking, and I'd had this belief that if I did this qualification, if I got as far as I could academically, I would absolutely unequivocally get approval from the people I needed to get approval from, all outside. And I remember going to bed that night and crying into my pillow, and just because I realized that I was so unsatisfied, and that I'd got this thing, I'd climbed the mountain and I'd done the best I could. There's nothing else I could have done to have made that better. But I realized that I was still looking for something I was never going to be able to own for myself. And I really kind of thought, okay, look at you, this is ridiculous. I was able to move into that observer and go, what is wrong with you? This is, you've got to sort this out, because this is stupid. And then that's been a lot of the journey, is kind of going, okay, so how do we get to the place where we sit in joy and we do things and we give them our best and we pay attention to what we're doing because it's in service to others. So we don't want to give someone else some old rubbish. And then that is the thing that drives us. So it's, as you say, when we're stuck in ego, when we're stuck in efforting, we're doing it for us to be looking good to the rest of the world. We're fully contained by ego. When we're doing it in service to others, we're doing the best because we want to offer the essence to that person we're looking at. We want to offer their divine self a gift that is worthy of the divine, whether that's our time or our job or our product or whatever it is, And you can't think about your own edges where the beginning of you starts and the beginning of them starts, because it's all for them. You just disappear. And that's, for me, was very much the antidote, was moving into this idea of what it is to be in service. And, then I step out of that, and I'm, you said it in one of our videos, Zoe, which made me really happy, when you have moments when you're working and you're facilitating where you cease to exist. And that's exactly what it is. It was such a beautiful articulation.
And I also feel that with mothering, and I also feel that in nature. Those moments of awe. I think it's really interesting, like that moment of reverence, what happens there. But I also wanted to bring up Carol Dweck here while we're talking about this subject, because I think growth mindset, one of the things that really struck me very clearly, and also my firstborn has strong perfectionistic traits, and she's a 1 on the Enneagram, for any of you that know that. So that's the perfectionist. And one of the things that Carol Dweck talks about is that if you become married to the concept of perfectionism, you will cease to try to do new things because it's too terrifying. And the idea of failure becomes this massive, terrifying roadblock. And with our daughter, the thing that we found is that she wouldn't even want to do the workings out. She'd want to go straight to having the right answer. And she would be reluctant to write it down on a piece of paper. So we actually bought her a whiteboard so that she could learn, I can work it out and then I can rub it down and move on. So she had to retrain her brain. And so when she did that, when she relinquished perfection, then daring came back. And then also the joy of learning and the joy of not knowing, the joy of being a student. I mean, and that fires you and me up profoundly, doesn't it, Polly? That idea.
And that sits with curiosity for us too, because if you know it all, there's nothing to be curious about. If you're terrified of someone else finding out you don't know it all you've got is armor and anxiety. And I mean, I think we see so much anxiety, and I would make a direct correlation with the levels of anxiety we've got in society right now to the levels of striving and perfectionism and the levels of self-hatred and self-delusion around what it is to actually achieve and be in your essence. It's a big story for for the West particularly, it's a big story, and we need to make those connections with all of the external attachment to permanence and what it is that is really meaningful. And I think this is why this work that we do together and why we do this series and stuff is so important, because I think it's really great to have these conversations, and so we can look at ourselves through being in dialogue with another. It's just it's massive.
I agree. I agree. And for those of you that are watching, I'm sorry that the side of my face is now like an luminous mirror ball. I was trying to have some natural lighting in here, and so
You really do. You really.
I actually look like for those of you that are listening, I look kind of like an alien. I look like an unpacked Ian.
It's really it's so great.
It's kind of sorry, I was kind of enjoying that. Look, we are going to leave you with that, but please, if you have anything to add or share or ask or tell us stories of your own experience with perfectionism, we would love to hear, because it is, I mean, as we've talked about, it's just so prevalent, and it's so fascinating to talk about why and how do we release ourselves from that bondage.
And also, we want you to find joy. So I think this, for me, and I think for both of us, is an invitation for you to take stock of your joy. If it's something you can't find or you don't feel you're sensing a lot in your life, this is the moment to sort of look where that comes from within. And it's a really great, curious rabbit hole to go down. So if you're not experiencing joy and you're working your guts out, what's happening? Where is the meaning and purpose? So have a deep look.
Yeah, beautiful. So we are www.pilotlight.co. Come and find us if you'd like to, and we shall see you in the next video.
See you in the next video.
I got my way. Thank you, Polly. Bye bye, everyone.